basic. My name is CJ, and just in case you don't know me, what we do is we're a consultant. We do training. We do we give corporate advice on how we can improve the performance of our people, or the performance of our business through our people. So we do that in areas of sales and marketing. We do that in areas of leadership. We do that in areas of how we can have better team leadership or team decision making. So that's in a nutshell what we do. And also every month what we do is we try to have a monthly newsletter on a specific topic. So the topic for last month was this, Zen and the Art of Sales and Marketing. Right, and what we want to have is to look into some of the trends in sales and marketing, how we can be aware of those and have a better performance as a result. Okay, so this is what we do. If you haven't got our newsletter yet, the next issue of newsletter, which was published 2 days ago, basically that was on self-awareness, how you can be self-aware about the strengths and limitations as a leader. Okay, so that's what we had for this month, which will be next month's Power Breakfast. Right, so this is what we do. Now, normally we usually have a bigger group for breakfast. We had about half of people who are either not here yet because it's too hot, or they're not coming because it's too hot. Yeah. So so anyway, we have a small group. We have a closer discussion on Zen out of sales and marketing. So before we begin on the sales and marketing part, we'd just like to ask everybody, what is your understanding of Zen?
Balance within yourself.
Balance within yourself, right?
No talking.
No talking, maybe. Some of the meditations requires no talking. Yeah, we're not going on the religious side of Zen. We're just looking to the philosophical side of Zen. In Chinese, it's called Chanzong. Okay, yeah, with some balance and health. What else?
Control your emotions.
Control your emotions. In fact, what Zen is, it's without the religious concept. What Zen is, it's about self-awareness. It's about being aware of what's happening all around within yourself and within and with the environment as well. It's that being conscious about the subtle changes everywhere. So that's what part of Zen is about, right? And this is where we are looking at in the area of sales and marketing. And you're right, we're also looking into how we can actually strike a balance in the realm of sales and marketing as well. So some of the concepts of Zen, and we're not going to have a full lecture on Zen that will take too long, and probably will take a lot of meditation practices. So we'll just have some brief aspects. It's not even a full thing. Some brief aspects that we can learn from Zen and how we can actually apply to sales and marketing. So one key thing is, it's called, if you're not awake, you are asleep. If you're not aware of what's happening, you are going around things as in being numb. Okay, so are you really wide awake, being aware of what's going on out there as you proceed on, or are you half asleep doing the things without thinking? So that's one concept. Two is that you can observe a lot just by watching. Zenish kind of airy-feely concept. We'll have some specific examples on some of the bigger things that are happening out there in the market as well. And also, be an empty cup. It's probably a very famous quoted moment. We want to be empty. We want to be empty so that we can actually absorb more and newer information. Last but not least, it's called having no desire. Well, we've been said that if you have desire, then you have motivation. So if you don't have desire, how do you go about sales and marketing? We'll talk about that in a while. But first of all, we'll just look at the first thing. If you are not awake, you are asleep. Oh, by the way, we will actually send you the PDF files for the PPT, so you don't have to copy down everything. But if there's something that's interesting when I have jot down some notes, feel free to do so. So if you're not awake, you're asleep. And one, don't assume that customers will not change. there will always be changes, subtle changes in customers' needs, the way they buy things, their preferences. Whether you're in the consumer markets, whether you're in the industrial or B2B markets, there will always be changes in customer preferences. I'm going to give an example. Many years ago, China was the what we call textile and garment clothing capital of the world. So if you are in garment and clothing, basically you export to Europe, you export to the US, and you make lots of money. That was in the 90s. Well, what happened to the garment industry now, today? They went to Bangalore, they went to somewhere else. A lot of companies in China, a lot of factories folded up. They either have to go upstream market, or they have to close down. Okay, there are differences in cost structures, the differences in customer preferences. People in Europe and US, they may not have the kind of buying power anymore. There's been shrinking of the US dollar and the euros. So there's this huge change in the market. So if you're not aware of those changes, you can be caught in between. Number two, some of the potential changes in customers' needs. It's not about what are the changes. If the changes happen and you're not aware, it may be too late. So sometimes you've got to think about what could be the potential changes in customer needs. Now, since we're all in a hotel, a 5-star hotel, a few years ago, there was a surge in what I call a super luxury hotels, whether it's foreign brands or local brands. What do I mean by super luxury hotels? We have the Peninsula, right? We have, I think it's called a W. We have, what else? Places like the Pulley. These are very luxurious hotels, or even some hotels that cater only to specific people, right? There's a trend that 5-star hotel chains were going to more and more luxury, right? Back then, what we did, we advised our hoteler friends, hoteler clients that, well, maybe that was not a sensible, what we call strategy. Why? If you are looking at consumption, personal consumption, we could, some of the Chinese world could be getting rich, and they may want to have better luxury, better stay in some resort hotels. That's true. But on the other hand, if you look at what makes up the bulk of all hotel businesses, right? The main bulk of hotel businesses tend to come from businesses, not consumption. It's not because I want to go for a holiday, I want to have a splurge, I decide to go to some high, super 5-star or beyond 5-star kind of resorts hotel, and I go there all the time. I may go there once in a while to have some fun, but I may not be going to those places a lot of times. So the repeat consumption may not be a lot, but really, the real business comes from businesses. Businesses need to travel. We need to hold meetings like this, or even conferences, or sometimes even exhibitions and so on. People need to stay in mass, and there is always repeat orders. So businesses is the bulk of business. It's more stable. If you go overly luxurious, you may be pricing yourself above what most businesses can afford in terms of their budget. So rather than go beyond 5-star, it's more sensible to just focus on 4 to 5-star, or even what is known as 3.5 stars. There's some brands that are a scaled down of a business hotel. Brands like Express by Holiday Inn, Penta Hotels. These are the no-frills business hotel, kind of 3.5 star kind of concept. These are ongoing things that will attract more business customers. So we had that we had that advice back then for a lot of people in the hotel industry. That's what we observed, and sure enough, it's not something that we predicted. But because of the recent crackdowns, the recent government policy changes, government officials are not supposed to stay in sometimes 5-star hotels anymore. You're supposed to travel cheap. You're supposed to fly in economic flight. You're supposed to scale down a lot. So those that are super 5-star, beyond 5-star, the really luxury hotels, especially those in Beijing, tend to have trouble getting enough business. Right? And in fact, a lot of restaurants, a lot of high-end restaurants actually close down as a result. So this sort of thing is that, are you aware of what's happening today that could have an impact on your business tomorrow? Okay, so that's the other thing. So it's, are there potential competitors that have crept in? Right, we'll later on show some of the statistics between Nokia, BlackBerry, and the iPhone. So we'll look into some of the potential competitors that have crept in. What are some of the new marketing channels that you can tap on? If you want to go marketing, what are some of the new fanciful things that are hot topics today in terms of marketing channels? Social media, right? So is your business already on social media? People in your industry, are they aware of social media? If you want to apply this new fangled thing to your marketing, would you be ready for that? Yes?
Social media for me is just such a broad wording.
Yes, it is.
Well, what is it including?
Well, basically social media, it's a form of e-marketing. It's on a platform that allows interactivity between you, whoever that broadcasts your messages, and the user. Right? Sometimes between users themselves. In a way, if you want to look at what are some of the prehistoric versions of social media? In many years ago, we have the online forums. Some have discussion forum. People actually give their comments. Those are the prehistoric versions. Why social media today is so what I call vibrant today? It's not because of what is the platform we have. It's because we have the mobile phones. It's because we are we are using our mobile phones to go online, and we are always chatting or giving our comments or talking about certain things through social media on phones. So the various social medias that we see around that are popular in China. We know there's Weibo, right? And Weibo is now, in a way, not as hot as it used to be. What is the latest one?
Weixin?
Weixin is even hotter than Weibo, because Weibo sometimes if you say the wrong things, you get clamped down, right? Your comments get deleted. But Weixin, because it's only through an internal circle, it's not really that public, so you can say whatever you want. Right, so these are some of the popular ones within China. The international ones like Facebook, Twitter, even YouTube. Some people consider YouTube as social media as well. Unfortunately, has been blocked in China. The only international one and the one that is catered for business-to-business companies or people selling to companies is one called LinkedIn. Anyone know that? Yeah. So if you're on LinkedIn, it's a form of social media. It's, you have discussion groups. You can link to other people. You can make friends. You can get business referrals, hire people, and so on. So these are some of the things that the companies can exploit on. So far, LinkedIn has been used mainly for hit hunting, right? But it has other potential as well. The constraint of companies not going on social media like LinkedIn is this: you will need to have a change in mindset and skill sets to go to social media. How do I mean by that? In the past, if you're a company and you want to do marketing, what is your main form of marketing channel? What are ways of you doing marketing?
Face-to-face.
Face-to-face. If you've got some budget.
Newsletter.
If you've got some budget. You got money to spend.
Oh, if you have some.
Yes, if you have budget.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, classical marketing activities.
Yeah, you have activities, you put advertisements, and so on. So for typical B2B, business to business, especially industrial product company, what you do is that you have a trade show, you go for an exhibition, and then you put up ads in industrial publications. So these are the two main forms. right? And this are in a way easy to do as long as you have money. You just need to know what trade show, what magazine, put the ad, end of story. Just wait for the phone to ring if it rings at all. Okay, wait for people to call in, if people actually call in as a result at all. Now, doing social media is a total different change because you're not putting an ad. Putting an ad means you just put an ad together, get someone to design it, and just ship it to the publisher, and someone will handle it. Doing social media means that you need to be constantly involved in putting up little content, little bits of pictures, linking to people, inviting people to connect with you, getting them to share whatever you have posted with their friends, and so on and so forth. It's a total different mindset and skill set. Right? It's totally different, so a lot of companies have not really gone onto it. Now, we mentioned about advertising, you spend money, someone else do the job. So you're actually spending money to buy time. You don't have to spend a lot of time, you just spend money. In social media, you don't spend a lot of money, but you need to invest a lot of time. Right? So this is a trade-off, and it's an opportunity out there. Depends on what whether companies are willing to actually work around things and go on social media. Some companies say that they're too small. They couldn't afford to hire an additional person just to make posts on LinkedIn, on Weibo, on Weixin, and all that. And our suggestion is that sometimes you don't need to assign one person to do the job. Sometimes you can actually assign different people to post different parts of content. It doesn't have to be long content. Something that's interesting. You went to a trade show. These are some pictures. You at a customer meeting. You have a photograph of the customer, right? You did a product demonstration. You have a short little video. Those little snippets. You have a new product launch. You have some brief introduction of new product. Little snippets, and different people can do the little part and just post it online. Okay, so these are some of the things that we can do to engage customers. It's a totally new thing. A lot of companies don't even have the structure to actually tap on it. So that's the new marketing thing. New government regulations, as mentioned, especially in China, there has been a change of leadership at the top, and as a result, there has been a change in a lot of governmental policies. Right? What we have talked about GSK and the anti-corruption drive is only just a small part of the changes. Right? What are some of the bigger parts include the banking system. Right? There's now a credit crunch. In the past, a lot of state-owned enterprises, if you want to borrow money, it's easy. You can get funding very easily and very cheap interest rates. Right now, there has been a credit freeze that the government instituted to all the state-owned banks, not allowing them to give loans too easily. Right. So this is the different things that are in the government can actually have the impact on businesses. So these are some of the things, and even on the broader scale, things like the Snowden incident. Right, heard of Snowden? Right, so even the Snowden incident can have different implications on web privacy, on how online businesses can do or cannot do their business as well. So these are some of the things that, are you aware of what's happening now, which may not have an impact on the business today, but slowly as things unfold may have an impact on the business tomorrow. So this is what we meant by being awake. So here are some what they call data, right? This is BlackBerry. Okay, so and in 2010, by the way, anyone here uses a BlackBerry phone? No, ever? No, before? Okay. We'll talk about Nokia in a while. BlackBerry in 2010 has got 37% of the market share of smartphones in North America. In 2012, that shrunk to 5.2%. So it's a huge shrinkage. If you look at what's happening, users increased when iPhone was launched in 2007 from 8 mil to 7 million in 2010. Interestingly, we thought that BlackBerry will have its biggest competition because of the iPhone. No, it didn't happen. Users actually exploded a lot. What happened was what is known as the smartphone revolution. A lot of people went on smartphones, and when iPhone was launched, or shortly after the iPhone was launched, we also have the Android phones as well. And the Android phones are known for not very secure as a security device. So a lot of companies actually issue their staff with BlackBerry phones as a secondary phone. So you have an iPhone and a BlackBerry, or an Android and a BlackBerry. Okay, so that was what happened. So as you know, the touchscreen phones increase, the BlackBerry phones actually increase as well. So what this gave is, by 2010, BlackBerry thinks that it's doing very well. It's very profitable, right? And until 2010, it is very profitable. But by 2012, Google Android platform in North America is 52%, compared with the 5.2% for BlackBerry. It's been displaced. There are more and more people buying Android phones and iPhones, and less people buying the BlackBerries. So Android overtook BlackBerry in Q4 2010 globally. Android global market share right now is 75%. It's a huge market for Android phones at the moment. So the question then is, from 2007 to 2012, that's 5 years. Right? In mobile phone industry, 5 years is a very long time. What has BlackBerry been doing?
Nothing, that's the problem.
Nothing, just collect money, right? They tried to have the BlackBerry 10, and that is doing very badly at the moment. And very few people actually buy them, right? They had very strong resistance to what I call touchscreen phones. Okay, and that in a way kind of, by the time you go into they go into the touchscreen phones, it is too little, too late. So that's BlackBerry. I want to see if I got. Oh, okay, I don't have Nokia here. I'm going to just talk about Nokia for.
But what is the sense anyway for BlackBerry? They're good because they are not touchscreen, no? So.
Well, in a way, there are people who prefer the non-touchscreen, but most people here, most customers right now are used to touchscreen. Whether they prefer or not, that's a different story. But most people are used to touchscreen already. So the number of non-touchscreen users is actually dwindling, as we can see from numbers. There are still people who prefer non-touchscreen. That's a fact. Right? We're not going to dispute that. It's a matter of what BlackBerry's strategy today of having a touchscreen version and a non-touchscreen version is the right strategy, but implemented way too late. If they had implemented the same strategy in 2008 or 2009, that could have been a different story altogether. Right? By then, in 2008, 2009, you probably don't have that many Android users. We don't have that many iPhone users. If someone wants to have an alternative, they still can have the BlackBerry. Right? So these are some of the difference. Anything else to add? Let me check if I can get up the one on iPhone. Just give me a second. No, not iPhone. Sorry, Nokia. Yes. There's Nokia. What's Nokia? Nokia is the world's largest vendor of mobile phones from 98 to 2012. Right? Basically, by the number of phones sold, Nokia is the market leader. Even till today, for non-smartphones, Nokia is the market leader. Right? It's still the market leader for non-smartphones as it is today. In 2012, it still has 22.5% of the global market share of phones, of handphones. That is including non-smartphones, right? So that's Nokia. Now the share price has fallen from $40 US in 2007 to under $2 in 2012, within 5 years. So, anyone bought Nokia shares in 2007? I hope not.
What is share?
Share price, stock price.
Oh, okay. No.
Okay, so.
That's good.
No, it's a morning. In Q2 2012, we've got 26 million iPhones and 105 million Android phones have been shipped, but only 6.8 million Nokia devices with Symbian and 5.4 million with Windows Phone. Okay, so there's about 13 million Nokia phones being shipped altogether in 2012 Q2, but something like 130 million Android and iPhones combined together sold in the world. So it's shrunk a lot. Symbian devices. Anyone ever used a Nokia phone before? I did. We all did. Symbian devices from 37.6 share of the smartphone devices in 2010. Surprise, surprise. The ones with the fixed keyboard, the non-touchscreen Nokia phone Symbian devices. In 2010, it still got 37.6% of that market share. Surprise, right? With Android 22.7, RMM is it's now called BlackBerry 16%, and Apple iOS at 15.7%. In 2010, actually, BlackBerry is bigger than Apple. Interesting, right? So that's just 2 or 3 years ago. By Q2 2012, Symbian share was 4.4 and now probably gone. Right now, Nokia is now converting all kinds of phones to Windows. No more Symbian phones anymore. So, again, what happened at Nokia? Why is it that in 2010 you still got you're the biggest provider in 2010 in terms of what we call smartphone providers. You got the biggest share in 2010. As late as 2010, Nokia has got the biggest market share in the world for smartphones. And 2 years later, it's gone. Or it's almost gone. What happened?
They were too arrogant and thought they are the leader, and they didn't go on with new marketing, advertising.
They may not have gone with new marketing. What else?
All the apps things. They missed the app part.
Well, if you're on Symbian, you probably have very limited apps, right? So you don't have LinkedIn, you don't have Weibo and Facebook and whatever on Symbian.
So they didn't went for the social media possibilities.
No, of course they didn't.
Touchscreen, right?
So you got no Symbian is non-touchscreen.
They weren't innovative enough.
Sorry.
They weren't innovative enough. A competitor came in who was more innovative than that.
In terms of innovation, this is an interesting thing. Who invented the multi-touch? Not just the touch screen, the multi-touch, as in you use 2 fingers.
You say so, Nokia?
Yes, Nokia. Right. I mean, Steve Jobs, when introducing the iPhone, the first iPhone, said that Apple invented multi-touch. That's not true. Apple modified on the multi-touch, as in they had their own innovation on the original multi-touch. The original multi-touch was invented by Nokia.
They didn't work with it.
Right. So they didn't. They're innovative. They've got very good things. Well, think back, while we were using the Nokia phones, they've got very good user interface with the non-touch screen. They've got one of the best user interfaces if you're talking about non-smartphones. And that's Nokia. Till today, they probably have got the best Macs. Some people swear by Nokia phone Macs or Nokia Macs. So this they got great innovation. The only thing was that they actually got a prototype of the first iPhone before the iPhone was launched. And guess what was the feedback?
Wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work. No one will buy. This will be a flop. Why? Because you drop the iPhone, that's the end of the iPhone. Right? If it rained outside, you put an iPhone in a pocket and it's soaked in rainwater, that's the end of the iPhone. Okay, so it's got poor reception, it's got poor voice quality and so on. They measure it as a phone, but not as a, what do you call, multimedia interactive device. Right? When the iPhone was sold, Steve Jobs sold it as an iPod with touchscreen controls, plus a phone, plus an internet communicator. It's all three in one. This is the iPhone, and in future smartphones, that is the case as well. Even for the Android phones, even for the Nokia Windows phones, that's the case as well. Back then, Nokia evaluated as it is not a phone, as they just evaluate from the phone point of view. So that's a mistake, but that mistake is not enough to kill them. What happened when the iPhone was launched? This was very good. A lot of people bought it, and not only a lot of people bought it, we saw what I call a surge of the Android phones as well. We've got Samsung, we've got HTC, and other brands latching on the Android phones market, and this has actually picked up. Right, so there was huge demand for touchscreen phones, and what did Nokia do? Nothing. Right? If they had partnered Windows in 2008 or 2009, it probably will have been a different story. Or if they had gone on to Android platform in 2008 or 2009, that or even if Symbian can be modified into a touchscreen version and with different apps, that could have been a different story. Nothing happened. Right? So it's about it's also known as the winner's curse. Right? If you're leading the market, sometimes you can think that you set the rules for the market. Right? You determine what's going to happen or not happen in the market. To the extent that that may not be true, you can be blinded by your own success. That's why we say, are you aware? Are you being awake and aware of what's going on in the environment and take action? Mm-hmm. Right. The other story we wanted to talk about, we don't have the stats here, but we are probably very familiar with, is Kodak.
Inventor of digital cameras.
Exactly. Kodak invented digital camera, and it's gone. It's no longer in the camera business, right? It's now existing only for some industrial printing that uses the film technology. Why that happened? And if you're talking about phones, right? Phones within the span of 5 years, you can go from number one to bankrupt. That is the phones market. It's a fast-moving market. Yes.
They bankrupt because I don't buy new ones.
Exactly.
They're holding too long time.
Too long to old ones, yeah.
They care too much about the quality.
Right. So for Kodak, for cameras, right? Kodak actually invented digital phones for 25 years before the first commercially available digital camera came out in the market. So it's got a 25-year lead time. Maybe 25 years too early to the market. It's not a good idea. But when digital cameras become more and more popular, Kodak did nothing. Why?
No development for 25 years.
Well,
I mean, why do you want to invent in something which apparently 20 years didn't boost at all?
It's too expensive, it's too bulky, other technology are not ready, we're not able to print from digital to photo and so on. We don't have computers that we can share photos, we don't have phones that can share photos, so it was way too early. But then again, after 25 years later, someone else actually paid them for a patent and sold digital cameras. And even after that, it took probably another 20 years or so for digital cameras to overtake film cameras. So it's a long process, and Kodak could have saw the trend and did something. In fact, they did see the trend, and in fact, they did try to do something, but something else happened internally. This is the internal. When they want to go digital, the people who made the most noise are the people in their film business unit. So the film business unit is actually the unit that generates the most cash for Kodak. right? So when Kodak tried to go digital, all the film, all the chemical processing people, they all put up a huge, strong objection, and as a result, nothing else happened. Right? Kodak basically was stopped by its own internal people from going to digital cameras. By the time it decided to go digital cameras with digital processing, films and photo printing, it's way too late. The market's gone, and now even for digital cameras, how many of us are buying digital cameras these days? Not really. We buy phones with the digital camera on it, right? Either we have the phone with digital camera, or we have a more professional type of single lens SLX type of camera, right? We don't have the convenient point and shoot type of digital camera anymore. It's a change, a shift in the market again. And the shift takes a long while to happen. It got a long time to take action. A lot of people chose not to do anything. Right? So sad things happen. Let's look at our favorite brand right now, iPhone. 2010, iPhone had a market share of 4% of all mobile phones. But more than 50% of total profit from the global mobile phone market. The iPhone is a high-end product. It doesn't have to sell a lot, but it does make a lot of money. It's got more margins and make more money than all other brands combined, even though it sells a lot less. Okay, that's iPhone, high-end. 2013, iOS market share in North America is 39%. It's very, very big in North America. 2012 Q4, iPhone 5 and iPhone 4S were the best-selling handsets with 13% of smartphones worldwide. Right, so there's in terms of singular models, not whole brand. In terms of model, these two were the best-selling models. But share could fall to single digits by September 2013 because low-end smartphone markets are growing even faster. So the question is, what's next for iPhones or Apple?
Probably three different solutions: a high-end one and low-end one.
Well, yeah, it's now in the crossroads. iPhones have always been making money from the high end. It's always a high end and it's making a lot of money. But for the market, smartphones today are no longer an expensive product. Right? In the case of BlackBerry, recent story from BlackBerry, if you buy a BlackBerry phone with subscription, as in with monthly subscription fee to a telecom company, if you buy it from Amazon in the US, it's only $49 for a BlackBerry 10. Okay, so that's BlackBerry. In China, right? What are some of the Chinese branded smartphones? We got Xiaomi, we got Huawei, we got ZTE as well. So these are the phones that can be sold for around 1,000 to 1,500 RMB.
A month?
No, the phone.
Yeah, okay.
The phone.
Because the other one was when you
No, the other one was
yeah.
49 for the phone, and then
Yeah.
per month they have a subscription to the telco. So the phones can be very cheap, right? For smartphones, it's getting cheaper and cheaper. Right, even for Samsung, even for Nokia, they've got cheaper models as well. So smartphones is no longer an expensive product. It's no longer the high end of the market. So there's a dilemma for iPhone at the moment. Growth at the top is now stabilizing. It's now shrinking. Right? If we want to look into their market share for high-end smartphones, they probably are the market leader. Right? They probably have. There are no studies on what is high-end smartphones, but we can estimate that probably have around 70 to 80% of the market share of high-end smartphones. But that market is probably growing, but growing at a much smaller pace right now. The biggest growth is the mass market smartphones. That's the biggest growth. So iPhone is in a crossroad. If they stick to the high-end market, they will still make a lot of money. But they'll have decreasing market share. Our growth in terms of their profits will not be as high as what was before. Right? If they go into the mass market, right? They may be diluting the brand. As in, iPhone is not that prestigious anymore. Sorry?
It's going to kill their image to do that.
Yeah, it's gonna spoil the image. It's spoil the whole brand positioning and everything else. So this is a dilemma. Which way to go? No one knows. Some people suggest that the best way for iPhones to do right now is to acquire Nokia. And Nokia becomes the best branded smartphone for the market. They don't know what Apple is going to do. No one knows what's going to happen. But these are some of the things that is impacting Apple, and they're thinking about what to do next. Right. So these are some threats of new competition. Threat of substitutes as well. What's happening out there in the market? Tablet shipments more than half of that of PC in 2012. Right now, basically the whole PC, including laptops, in terms of the number of units shipped out, has shrunk. Right, total units have shrunk, sales have shrunk, margins have fallen, to the extent we call Dell for a period of 10 years used to be the world's biggest PC manufacturer selling for around 10 years. It's now ranked number 3 in the world, but in terms of profits, it's trying to get delisted. As in, it's a listed public company. Right now, it says we no longer can provide the kind of profits. They want to go privatize once again, to be privately owned once again. It's not doing that well. HP now is now looking into how they can sell more services rather than selling hardware. Right? The smarter company that is not included in the people here is actually IBM. What did IBM do a few years ago? It sold the whole PC unit. People thought they're crazy, right? They're not. They saw this happen. They saw that hardware sucks, right? And what actually nailed the coffin on the hardware business is the tablets, right? In the past, we all have laptops. Right now, some people don't buy laptops anymore. They have a tablet, and then they use a PC with the tablet. Or if they were traveling, they buy more tablets than laptops. But it's a whole change. Now, when was the tablet invented? Or when was the first commercially available tablet in the market?
2009?
Sorry?
2009?
2009, it's not the iPad. iPad is not the first commercially available tablet.
Kindle?
The first ones that are available is actually from Fujitsu, running on Windows, and that's in probably the late 90s. It looks like a laptop. The screen can be turned around, right? You can switch switch the screen backwards. You can even change the screen to vertical, and then it's almost like the tablet what we see today. If you put it vertical, the screen will appear vertical, and it's easy to read things like Word documents or newspapers and so on. So those were available in the late 90s, and Fujitsu actually had those products ready, but it didn't sell well. Why? Because Windows or Microsoft did not have the right software to actually help spur growth for the tablets, so it flopped. And why Microsoft is not willing to change? Again, its main business is actually in the OS. It's in the then version of Microsoft Office. It didn't want to spend too much money or resources on something that's new. So it lost an opportunity. So right now, most of the tablets are either iOS or Android. Right. The good thing about Microsoft is that it learned from its mistakes. Right now, Samsung has got a new tablet that can run on Android and Windows. And the purpose of running a tablet on Windows is that you can run Microsoft Office on a tablet. And so Windows, it's in a way learning from mistakes. You see, you usually won't be killed by your first mistake. So it's human to make mistakes. will have wrong judgment errors. It's all, we all make mistakes. You will be hurt, but you will not be killed. You won't die, as long as you can learn from it, which Microsoft did. Right. So these are some of the things that that happens. Oh, and by the way, a lot of the strategy. We were on the topic of being awake. The iPod, the iPhones, and even the iPad. A lot of things come together, not because of a planned strategy. They come together because of an emerging strategy. The iPod was initially just a hardware. Then later on, because of the music industry saying that digital music is hurting the music industry because of copyright infringements, Apple started to have the iTunes Store, where you sell songs or you sell music by 99 US cents per song. Right? That act actually changed the whole music industry, and everybody, basically it firmed up the what I call the dominance of the iPod in the market. So that's iPod. The iPhone was also came about by accident. If you read the Steve Jobs biography, the White Steve Jobs book, it's written that the iPod came by almost by accident. Apple thought that it's not in the phone industry. Right? They don't want touch phone. They know nothing about phones. They are probably computers and probably music, and that's it. So they thought that they could partner with someone else to have the iPod and the phone combined. So they actually partnered with Motorola first, and the Motorola launched a phone called the Rocker, R-O-K-R. Right? In China, the brand ambassador was Zhou Jilin, right? Jay Chou, right? So to launch a phone, but it flopped because you cannot sync that with your computer. It's got very limited songs, very limited functionality. The whole thing was a badly conceived concept. So Apple said, okay, if you want to do something right, you have to do it yourself. That's Apple. Okay, so and it just so happened that during that time, they were looking into how they can have touch screen controls for the iPod, not a phone. They already were developing touch screen controls for the iPod. And they said, okay, fine, if you're going to have touch screen controls for the iPod, then we might as well combine it with the phone. Right? And we have the iPhone. It's accidental. The iPad is in a way also accidental. Right? A few years ago, the best-selling form of PCs, laptops, were not the full-range laptops like what we see today. A few years ago, the best-selling laptops were known as netbooks. What about those? Right, the best-selling brand is Asus, the EE PC, the triple E PC. Very small netbooks, cheap. Just use it software to surf the web, but it hangs easily. It's not really functional. So Apple saw that there is actually an opportunity right there, right, to have something that's better. So you have the iPad. What exactly is the iPad? It is an enlarged version of the iPod. The iPod's very small. Just enlarge it, and it's iPad. That's what it is. You know, it's not really a newfangled, but there was a portion of it. They saw people that are using something to surf the web, do very simple things, watch some movies, watch some photos, share photos, and that's about it. Then comes the iPad. It's all emerging. Apple has been very good in observing, being awake at what's going on in the market. Unfortunately, that Zen master, by the way, Steve Jobs religiously is a disciple of Zen Buddhism. So that Zen master has since passed away. So we don't know if Apple can actually be that awake today. We don't know. We hope they are. I hope they are. Okay, so we won't talk about government infrastructure. Rules have changed, but basically it's just that. Are you being aware of things that are happening around you? So you can observe a lot by just watching. You don't have the original in your ideas. A lot of what Apple is doing are not original ideas. They actually borrowed it, patented it, or stole it outright from someone else. the core technology for the iPod. Without the iPod, you won't have the iPhone. The core technology from the iPod didn't come from Apple. It came from a Singapore company called Creative Technologies. And Apple actually had an out-of-court settlement for using Creative Technologies' core technology for the iPod. Okay, so the iPhone, we talked about the iPhone and multi-touch. Multi-touch did not come from Apple, it came from Nokia. And not only that, before the iPhone, were there other touchscreen phones available out there in the market? Before the iPhone came out, were there touchscreen phones?
Yes.
Yes, there are. Which one? It's now known as HTC. Back then, it's known as Dopod. Right? Back then, even before the iPhone came out, they had the touchscreen phone. But it's not as functional as the iOS, but they were there before the Apple. So it's not about original ideas. It's sometimes about observing. You can observe from you can adapt from what others are doing. You can observe what the competitors are doing. You can observe what people of other industries are doing. Now, the key feature of the iPhone is the home button. It doesn't have any other buttons, so you only have the home button, right? Where did the inspiration for the home button come from? It's interesting. It's probably a bad time to talk about it since we're having breakfast, but it's an interesting concept.
Toilet flush.
Toilet flush. About it, toilet flush. The engineer was tasked by Steve Jobs said that we only have one up button, and the engineer was like, "How the hell are we going to do it?" Until he went to the toilet and found out, no, this toilet flush. You can have a full flush, you can have half flush, you can do different things on the flush. So it came with an inspiration that with one touch or double click or touch and hold, it can mean different things with just one button from toilet flush.
When you see it's a huge marketing strategy to take something like a toilet as explanation, I think that it's just such a nice story that everybody can recognize. Maybe it's a marketing story.
It could be. It could be even for things like if you have a MacBook or Apple computer, the power socket, the one that links it to the computer, not the one that links it to a power point. The ones that link to the computer is actually magnetic, right? They didn't invent that. They got it from someone else. They got it from Japanese rice cooker. And the thing is that the Japanese thought about it that no, rice cooker is something that is hard, that if someone were to spill over, it can be disastrous and dangerous. So they thought that the power point, if you have something that's magnetic, if someone were to trip over the wire would just come out. So no one gets hurt, right? So that came from the Japanese rice cooker, and they use it for the computer so that if you trip the wire just fall off. So you don't need to be original. Just need to observe what other people are doing, right? Even for Windows is also copying a lot of things. Windows, of course, in Steve Jobs' speech in Stanford University, because Windows just copy Apple, right? So that's not just Windows copying Apple in terms of the user interface. Even for we talk about the tablets having both Android and Windows running on the tablet. There is not a Microsoft idea. There is an Apple idea, right? Apple was the first computer in a way to have dual booting. Right, you can boot in Apple, you can boot in Windows, those Apple computers. So Microsoft saying that no, if Apple can do that for computers, we can do it for tablets as well. We can work with Samsung and say that, hey, would you like to have your tablets that can run Microsoft Office? And Samsung say, yeah, sure, why not? Just do it and have double booting on tablets. Okay, so these are concepts. We don't have to say that we need to invent everything. Sometimes we can borrow ideas from competitors. We can also talk about PDAs. Anyone still remember what is a PDA? Personal digital assistant. Palm Pilot and all that. All our phones, all the smartphones now are also PDAs. Basically, it's the way you keep your diaries, your email contacts on a digital device. Who invented the first PDA or commercially available PDA? Apple. It's called the Newton, and it flopped because it tried to do too many things. Right, so that was in the early 90s. They had the first PDA. It didn't work out. And then Palm Pilot said that this company called Palm Pilot came out and said that no, the Newton was overly ambitious. Let's have a scaled down version. Have black and white screen rather than have color screen. Let's have you need to learn to write the Palm Pilot way rather than just let the device recognize your handwriting. Right, so you have the Palm Pilot. Right, and that was then a huge success. If we want to see a PDA combined with a phone, like our smartphone today, who actually was the first phone that has a PDA and the phone together? That's Motorola. Right, that came in the late 90s as well. The A series, it's a flat cap with PDA and stylus with the phone. Right, it didn't sell well as well. Motorola did that. Right, it didn't sell well. And then things, in a way, went full circle when you have the iPhone, you have PDA and phone, and the best part is Steve Jobs says, why use a stylus? Throw away the stylus, use a finger. Okay, so this is, we can always borrow ideas from someone else. You don't need to have always original ideas. You have them, great, but you don't always need to have them. Even the graphical user interface that we see in our computers today did not come from Windows. It did not come from Apple. It came from Xerox, which is now part of Fuji. Right, it's now Fuji Xerox. So basically, a lot of great ideas out there doesn't have to be original. We can learn from someone else. BMT Cup. Here's a discussion. Why in China we are not creative enough? And this is an example I like to raise. The case of Kung Fu Panda. Who invented Kung Fu? Which country, right? Where did China, of course, right? Kung Fu, right? China. Panda, from which country does the panda live in? China. But when you put Kung Fu and Panda together, it's Hollywood. It's not China anymore. So why is it that we are not creative enough? What happened?
You say we as in
China. It's China. In China.
The education
or Asia for that matter.
The educational system.
Educational system? What about the educational system?
Stimulated to learn and basically take teacher's word for what it is instead of.
Okay, we rote learn, we memorize everything. Okay, that's one part. That is still not the key thing that killed creativity. It's something else. Just cut short by two things. One happens in our education. One happens at work. The part of our education is we need to always be providing the right answer. It's not a rote learning. It's about always needing to be right, and the stigma of being wrong. Right? That is what that killed creativity. The thing about creativity is sometimes wrong answers can lead to something else. Or if you want to have a creative, great idea, sometimes you need to have 999 other bad creative ideas before you get that one great idea. So that's a process of creativity, right? If you always want to be right, then it's hard to have right and have something that's bold and people don't understand. It could be a bit raw and rough that needs some refining. So that is what killed a lot of creativity, and especially in Asia. That's one part. At work, what happens is that a lot of bosses, some bosses will say that we need to have suggestions, we need to have ideas, we need to have people to contribute different ways of doing things. So in a meeting, the boss can say that, no, we have this problem. Tell us what you think of a possible solution. And sometimes you have an employee, probably a new employee, coming up and say that, oh boss, this is what I think, and tells the solution. And to the boss' credit, it could be a bad idea. But what the boss did is to tell the person, that is a stupid idea. You are a stupid idiot. Okay, so this is what the boss did. So what do you think will be the person's reaction in the next time when the boss asks for a contribution? You won't give it. I'm an idiot. Okay, I'll keep my mouth shut. So that's one part. Two is that the other colleagues, will other people also want to give the contributions? No? They don't dare. So that's we're not. That's what it killed creativity. Right? And over here we mentioned about being an empty cup. It's always it's a Zen concept is to think that sometimes, even though when we think we are right, we could be wrong. Right? The empty cup concept is a cup is only useful when it's empty. A cup is not useful when it's full. Right? So it's about emptying what you think were the right things, and just suspend it for a while and maybe explore some crazy ideas for a while. You can make your judgment later on, but be receptive to alternative views. Sometimes it's a bad idea to be smart. And this is why. What is the definition of being smart? If you're smart, chances are you should be right most of the time, right? That's why you're smart. But if you're right most of the time, and someone else comes up with a different idea, different opinion, different answer, that means they must be wrong. Right? So there's the curse of being smart. You're smart, you're usually right, and someone comes up with a different idea, then usually they're wrong. So you go into a conflict where I'm right, you're wrong. And I have to prove to you I'm right and you're wrong because I'm smart. Right? So this is way that the cup is not empty. They could be wrong, but they could have some valid points. We're not saying they are completely right. We're not saying that you're wrong. We're just sharing ideas. So it's about being receptive enough to take in ideas. Sometimes it's mentioned about we kill ideas too easily. In a brainstorming session, we either kill ideas or we take the first idea that come out that is workable, and we forget about there could be other potential, even better ideas that could come out later on. Right? So this is kill ideas too easily. Cost of failure. What is the cost of failure? The key thing here is if you need to fail fast and fail cheap. And the cost of failure is this, that if this is the boss's pet project, and the boss wants to make it work, and everybody else sees that this is not going anywhere, it's not going to work, and the failure actually drags on and on and on and on, and what could have been you just cut the cost, learn from the lessons, and move on, it became a huge, costly failure. So it's about not being receptive enough, not being able to say that, well, I may be right most of the time, but then again, there could be times that I could be wrong, and I could make modifications, I could make changes, I can listen to other people's point of view. And so this is about being an empty cup. And by the way, there's a study on communication of leaders, business leaders' communication skills. Around 80% of all business leaders think that they have good communication skills. Only about 20% of their followers think that their bosses are good communicators. Right? People at the top tend to think that they're good communicators, very good in communication. People who are around them think that no, they are bad. Not so much because they are bad at expressing themselves, but they are bad in listening. Okay, so these are some of the things that can kill the cost of feeling. In fact, in our next session, we'll be looking at: are you being self-aware? Are you listening to feedback? Can you distinguish between good and bad feedback, and able to learn from the feedback from the people around you, and be a better leader, be better in sales and marketing? So these are some of the things. Being an empty cup, are you perceptive enough? As I said, are you being too smart? Are we always trying to prove we are right? We don't have to do that. Sometimes it's okay. There can be two right answers. It's okay. I'm right. You're right too. There can be two approaches to the same problem, and we can coexist peacefully ever after. Right? Or I can learn from your solutions. You can learn from mine, and we can have a combined better solution. Who knows? So it's about being an empty cup, being receptive to different crazy ideas at times. Having no desire. This is the part on the sales part. The previous slides tend to focus a lot on marketing. Here, this is one on sales. Right? Are we overly desperate to make the sale? This is what happens in, especially in price negotiation. Right? Salesperson, buyer. Who has the bigger bargaining power?
Purchase person.
The purchase person. Why?
Because he's like the client
Yeah.
and he has strong power.
Yeah, but why?
Therefore,
Because they are paying the money, so they got more power. Maybe. If you look at it on.
but it depends. Well, actually, it depends how many potential suppliers you have. If there's only one, and you know you have to buy from that one, then it's the other way
Exactly.
around.
I mean, the thing is
Okay,
that in terms of the buy and sell dynamics,
Yeah.
the buyer may not have that bargaining power, but the buyer does have a stronger bargaining power. It's got nothing to do with how many suppliers and how many buyers. It's got to do with something else. You see, if you think that the seller needs the money from the buyer needs a product from the seller. So it's a two-way thing. If you think that the buyer can buy from different sellers, the sellers can also sell to different buyers. So it's also two-way selection. It's not like I have to sell it to only that someone. What is different is that the buyer usually has got a longer time to make the buying decision. Especially for a business product, I can think about what I need to buy 6 months from now or 3 months from now. I have time to make my seller, supplier selection, evaluation, criteria, and so on. Time is on my side. Whereas a seller has sales targets to fulfill, and usually sales targets are shorter. So the seller, in a way, are more constrained by time than the buyer. So that's one part of the bargaining power difference. It's not about seller not being able to sell to more buyers. If you give the seller more time, probably the seller can actually sell to more buyers. But because you give the seller less time, in a possible, feasible time frame, I can only approach these few customers. And if one of them buy, that's great. If none of them buy, I'm screwed. So that's the it's a time issue, right? Also, if the buyer knows that the seller has got a target to achieve, right? Then it becomes a situation that the seller needs the buyer more than the buyer needs the seller. Not because the seller could not get another buyer, but the seller needs to fulfill a target that the buyer can help the seller to fulfill that target in a short span of time. Help in inverted commas then, and saying that I can squeeze you for price. I know that you have a target to achieve. If you don't achieve your targets, you could be fired. And this is what I can do to help you. I can buy from you now, but if you give me a good price, give me good service, give me good terms, I will buy from you now.
I don't agree 100%.
Sure.
Because reason, it's also not that easy for the buyer because they also have their targets
Sure.
to cut down the costs.
Sure.
And they normally don't have that much time to look around. Of course, they have time to find a suitable supplier for, but they also have their targets when the product has
Sure.
to be launched,
Sure.
when it has to
Sure.
go into
Sure.
production. So
Sure.
therefore, I don't agree.
I'm not saying that they have a lot of time. It's just that when you have product launches, you have product production schedules. These are forecasted. These are really forecasted, so you can actually act before things got going. Yes, definitely you have a time frame.
That's the same for the seller, right?
In a way, it is. It's just that the time frame for the seller seems to be shorter. or
You
relatively
also have
short.
your sales target normally based on a year, and also you plan accordingly.
Yes and no. Some salespeople have got quarterly or even monthly sales targets.
It depends when you go in as well.
Yeah.
Because if you go in, if the buyer has to buy in 6 months,
Sure.
and you have your sales target within 4 months, if you go in 2 months before,
Yes.
if you go in earlier, then
Of course, yeah. If you're a good salesperson, a great salesperson, you're able to pace your what we call fill up your funnel, fill up your pipeline, and great, you're able to get on track. What I'm saying is a lot of salespeople don't think of that. They don't think about what targets must I achieve this month at the end of the month, or at the end of the quarter. So that's why they got into a trap like this. Right? We're not saying that this happens in all sales cases.
And maybe
It's a
also,
start. Yeah.
sorry, and maybe also because they're based on commission. Of course, they want to have their commission as soon as possible.
Of course, yeah. I mean,
They don't want to. They don't want
Yeah,
to.
they don't want to delay
Exactly.
Yeah, so that
Sure,
adds into
okay.
the. So if you're desperate to make the sale, then you're having overly desire, and that actually makes you lose out in negotiation practice. So in terms of the Zen kind of mentality, what we want to do is sometimes. Well, having the desire, having the motivation is great, but in a certain negotiation setting, you may not want to think too much about the outcome. You may just want to think about what customer want, what you can do, and see if there's a way that you can work together, rather than think about your own personal desire, whether it's for targets or for commissions or whatever it is. Yeah, so that's that's a key thing. Also, as a salesperson, can you take no for an answer? Interestingly, a lot of salespeople in the traditional sense are being told or being taught not to take no for an answer. You force the customer into a corner, lock up the customer in a room, don't release the customer until they buy. Right, so that's the old school, right? Don't take no for an answer. So in salesperson today, can you take no for an answer? And here's the reason why. If the customer says no, it may not be the answer you want, but it's still an affirmative answer. If the customer says yes, that's great. If the customer says no, at least you have an answer. What really will kill you is if the customer says maybe.
The maybes are really exhausting.
Yes, exactly. They give you hope, right? I mean, the customer is not saying no, they give you hope, and you can follow up and maybe you have a sale. But the customer is not saying yes, right? You don't have clear signs that the sale is moving forward. Like in an industrial solution sale or in a B2B sale, you probably don't have a point of time where you close the customer, but you know that the sale is proceeding. You know that it's progressing, it's moving forward. But if the customer says, well, it's a great product, we love your product, we will consider about it, we'll need to wait for approval from our bosses, we just have to wait. So that is going to kill you. So sometimes no is great. No tells you that this customer is not ready to do business with you now. You can keep in touch. No doesn't mean no forever. No doesn't mean you have to be enemies with your customer. Doesn't mean that. No means that you don't do business now, and maybe there's an opportunity 6 months, 1 year down the road, who knows? Or in your next company, or in that person's next company, who knows? But no means that you don't have to waste time on something that will not happen, and just move on to something else. So it's having no desire. I don't have a desire that I need to close you today, right? It doesn't happen that way. And so it lifts pressure from you, it lifts pressure from the customer. Are you also being objective in assessing customers' needs? Now, this is also sales people's problems. We have salespeople who basically ask people where what we call customers and say that I want to sell something to you, right? I'm from this and this company, and we sell this product. We want to have an appointment with you. So the intent of selling is very strong. So when a customer feels that there's a strong intent to sell, what happens?
That easy driving.
You shoot yourself out and run away, basically, run away. So this is again having too much desire in front of the customer. So what I want to do is just to say that my purpose of meeting up is just find out if there's something that we can be of service to you, just to find out what's going on. If we can work, we work. If not, it's okay. We just make friends. We just want to take pressure off the customer. Don't want to make the customer feel that the reason we are there is to take the money and run away. Right, so there's some sort of things that we can learn from the Zen part. And just as part of the closing, it's what we say. If you can march 1,000 miles and not feel tired, you will be undefeatable. It's something that we quote from Sun Tzu Art of War. Right? Today, if you're doing sales, you're doing marketing, it's not an easy thing to do. It's getting harder. Customers are getting more and more demanding. You never know whether you can actually complete your targets or not. Right?
The market is changing.
And the market is changing also.
Not too fast compared to
the market is changing very well. It's not about fast. If the speed is predictable, it's still okay. You know it's going to be fast, and you know what's going to happen, so you can be prepared. The problem is it's unpredictable, or it's not easily predictable. That is the problem. Right? We don't know where it's going to be. Just have customer. They sell connectors, electronic connectors that can be used in rail systems, power plants, even for handphones, whatever it is, big and small connectors. And they thought that last year was a bad market in China. This year, GDP is going to fall below 7%, and so on. It's like it's bad. So they're saying that we don't foresee that business will grow this year. They forecast zero growth. And the boss says, no, we can't tell HQ, it's a German company, we can't tell Germany that we have zero growth. We must do something. Let's do 10%. Then everybody, okay, we'll do 10%. And what happened is they grew by 25% this year. I mean, it's a happy problem. The main problem now is that because they forecasted they grow by 10%, they only committed that their production resources by 10%. So they've got 15% of orders that they could not fulfill. That's like, it's unpredictable, right? So this is the situation that we're facing at the moment. There's a lot of things we'd like to have more surety, but it's hard to say. Which is why we need to have a lot more effort in watching around, being awake, observing, and try to make up on some of the subtle things that are happening around us.
Why can they then just not add? Would it be too expensive?
Well, no, it takes time.
More than 10%?
It takes time because if you have a factory, you want to increase production capacity, you need to have a new production line. You need to have more workers. You got to hire them. You got to train them. They need some time to get up to speed. So by the time everything is ready for that increase in production, it's half the year's gone. So yes, it's not like sales where we can just go to the customer and make the sale. Sometimes we can do that. Whereas production is concerned, sometimes it is a planned process as well, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.